So I have some news. We're changing some things.
What? You're changing things? I don't want to change anything. I knew what I was doing before.
You're good. It's not like you're getting fired or anything. It's just a few things, just very small. And there's always good with change. Even if you don't agree with it, there will be good with it. And we'll learn a little bit more about that with Brian Schwetschenau when he talks a little bit about accepting some change to procedures, policies, and even how to communicate those changes to others that you work with.
Okay. I guess I can still find my purpose, find my people, and find my place at the Principal Choice Podcast.
Yes. Welcome back to the Principal Choice Podcast. Today, we are going to dive into accepting change and how do you get others that you work with on the same page. We are joined by Brian Schwetschenau as we discover those topics. Welcome to the show, Brian. We wanted to hear a little bit about how you balance procedures that you may not agree with and you still have to follow. Can you give us a time when that has happened to you and you still had to move on forward with something that you maybe didn't agree with?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, the dynamic we have. We do things differently than what they do sometimes. And I think it's important to always take a step back and say, okay, what's our goal here? What's the end game? What do we have in mind? And come together, try to find common ground to make sure, hey, we're able to accomplish that goal in the end. You might not agree with necessarily how everybody's getting to that goal, but kind of having that understanding of, okay, this is their thoughts, this is what they're going through as well. And again, just trying to view it from their perspective so that, again, you may be able to find a better common ground to come work together and hopefully find a solution to get that end goal. So it's just kind of taking a look at from their point of view as well, not always kind of being tunnel vision on what you think might be right, but communicating, making sure you're getting your ideas out there and especially in a respectful way as well, no sort of attacking or anything like that. But yeah, definitely communicating, trying to find that common ground. And at the end of the day, just trying to do your best to reach the end goal and get that accomplished.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think that's a really great way of looking at it too, making sure that you are understanding where they're coming from, because we don't see everything that goes behind the lines of the heads up. We don't know everything that's going on. So we kind of have to hope for the best and guide it and digest it the best way possible. When you have associates or other managers, peers in the company kind of giving you pushback on this as well, how do you try to help navigate that sort of situation where you're trying to explain it to them and help them come to that same empathetic reasoning that you kind of came up with?
It's important to know who you're working with. And I think it's really important when you have others that come into play, know their, again, communication style, their learning style, trying to break it down in a way that maybe easier for them to digest and see through your eyes to, again, kind of find that common ground with it. I think sometimes when things are rushed and you're just throwing stuff at people and you're like, wait a minute, they might not understand anything what I said. Then I think that's where you can find yourself in some difficult spots. Again, from experience, we have several different departments that we work with, and the jargon we use is all different. So it's like, hey, I got to explain this in layman's terms or the easiest way possible of, okay, this is what we're seeing. This is how it impacts you. I'm going to try to explain it so we all can have that understanding rather than just trying to throw a billion things at them for somebody to then turn around and say, okay, what do you mean by that? I don't get anything of what you said. So again, just knowing your audience and then knowing who you're working with as well to try to break it down as best they can to digest and understand.
Yeah, taking that tailored approach while at the same time making sure you're slowing down. That's one thing that I have to practice a lot is slow down. Just because we're all in the same department or we're all in the same company, me explaining the certain policy or the certain procedure isn't always going to land 100% because knowledge is different. What are some of the ways that you pull yourself back from that emotion that you have, maybe with a disagreement or a heavy agreement, and you're trying to commute with someone on the other side of the spectrum?
It's always take a deep breath. Remind yourself why you're there, why we're here. We're all here to do our best. We're all here to work together to provide the best service we can, to work with our associates the best way we can. And I think, again, in any collaborative effort, there's going to be disagreements. It can get heated at times. And that's where it's important to remind yourself, take a step back, take a deep breath. Don't be so reactionary at times. That's something that I've learned, especially, is that, coming right off the cuff might not be the best thing. It might be, hey, give me a couple minutes, give me 30 minutes, or hey, let's meet in a couple days. Let me digest it so that, we can have a productive, conversation or meeting. I think sometimes when we're so quick to rush, I think having meetings for the sake of meetings can only hurt things sometimes. So I think that's why taking that step back, maybe giving it a day or two of, okay, everybody go to their respective corners, take a deep breath. Let's figure out a way to come together on this. Because again, when you take that step back, we all have the same vision in mind. We want to do the best of what we can in our positions. We want to be able to help others the best we can. And I think sometimes reminding yourself of that definitely helps push things in a productive way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's really important. I like what you said, kind of even taking a couple of extra days to let it sit, because I know I'm easy on the spiraling. As soon as I hear a negative, I just go, oh God, and just start going down a crazy rabbit hole, trying to make sense of the world. It's like everything turned upside down. And you're right, taking a deep breath, taking that moment to myself to go, Melena, calm down, you're fine. Having to talk myself off the ledge really helps. And I think really after a couple of days, you start to think of questions that could help you understand it better and help guide you where you need to go. I really do. What about, how do you handle, I'm trying to figure this out. When a policy or procedure that's put in place kind of gets updated and changed frequently, where it's kind of hard to stay on top of it. You want to make sure you're communicating that correctly to not only your team, but to others. How do you navigate that in those kind of conversations where you are following the policy and the directive that we're giving, but with the back and forth, you're not too happy here and there? I know associates aren't happy. How do you handle that part?
I think a big thing with that is, again, knowing your audience, digesting it yourself and saying, okay, I have this clear understanding now that I can disperse that information to everybody. And I think when you're having those conversations with folks, I know we talk about a lot of it here, transparency, super important. And I think giving background on some instances, again, to the best of your knowledge or the best that you can in your position, kind of gives that clarity and understanding. I think if folks kind of jump right to, hey, this is what we're doing, full stop, it doesn't give that background. And then you have some folks asking why. And, sometimes those why questions are super valid. So I think being able to, again, not divulge too much, but again, have that information yourself digested, know how to get it out to everybody, but at the same time, explain the reasoning behind it and the importance of it. I think that goes a long way. I think when you're working with others, again, transparency, I think helps establish, trying to think of the credibility with you. So if you're able to have that information there and say, hey, we're doing this, I know it's not fun, but this is why we're doing it. It kind of gets everybody again on that same page to have that clear understanding.
Yeah. So a couple of things that you brought up there. Transparency, definitely a big thing to hit on, building trust. I kind of want to go into the after effects of, you've had those conversations and you have those few that are struggling to accept it. What are those individual methods that you take to say, let's all get on the same page. We all know the why, we all know the common goal, but how do you get them over that edge of, okay, I finally accept it? There's some times where you can't, but in those situations where you're like, let me push a few buttons here to try to get you on the same wavelength. What are some of the strategies that you use?
And I think with, and everybody, a lot of people in our organization right now, they work from home. And it's not as easy to going somebody's office or going to somebody's desk to have the conversation, carve out some time. I think when it comes to, having more of those difficult conversations, it's, hey, let's jump on a Zoom call or let's jump on a Teams call. Let's have that face to face. Let's say, hey, I want to make sure I'm taking time out of my day to ensure, hey, you might not agree with it. You might push a little back on it, but I'm going to give you the most information I can so that you can have an understanding to move forward and to have that why to answer that question. Because I think a lot of it with that pushback, it's always, well, why are we doing this? And I think if you're able to answer that question, you have the information available to you. Because another thing too, with establishing that credibility and that trust, if somebody asks me a question and say, hey, why are we doing this? And I don't have the answer, I need to go find that answer. And I think that's important as well, that if you say, hey, I don't know, but I'm going to go find this information for you to make sure I get that to you. I think, again, that's a super important thing of establishing that trust, that credibility. And again, so you can come back to that person and say, hey, I know you had this. This is what I have for you. And I think that helps smooth things over. Again, they might not fully agree with it, but at least they have enough information in their back pocket to say, okay, they're giving me as much as I can as far as the whys and the hows and to moving forward with this.
Yeah, I think it's really hard too, especially when there is only so much information you can divulge over certain things, especially when we don't have all the answers and it's just the preliminary information that we're giving to put out there to alert them. So we are maintaining that transparency and making sure they know, hey, this is coming up. There's going to be some changes, but just know we'll let you know if there's more information. I think that's always a slippery slope to be on, because we definitely all work in departments that are quick to change on a dime. New procedures, new DLPs, new updates, new cues, anything like that. So it's very hard to stay on top of that.
And Milena, you've worked with me long enough. If I screw something up, I'll own it. I'll own it. And I will gladly say, hey, this was my fault. This is what we need to do. Mm-hmm. And again, that's something that I learned very early on as well, is that, if you mess up and make a mistake, don't run away from it. Just say, hey, I own it. I mess up. And again, I think that really helps establish that credibility and that trust of knowing, hey, it's okay to mess up. We're human. But at the same time, I'm going to do what I need to do to put folks in a position to make it right, so that, again, moving forward, everybody's on the same page. And again, we can reach that end goal.
Yeah. And I know you said taking that for yourself, but also encouraging the others that you work with to do the same. And we've talked a little bit about the ways that you do that is asking the why. If you can, maybe if you don't agree with the decision someone made, but you can understand why they did. Why did you call lead line for this and do it this way? Why did you transfer, whatever you're doing? Why did you process this claim this way? Mm-hmm. It makes things a lot more teachable, because you can go back to square one and say, okay, this is where we're going forward. I get it. I'm on your page, but we're going to move on from that. I think adaptability is another big piece to hit on. And I want to say usability. That's not the right word, but being resourceful. So even when something changes and you don't agree with it, you can still use it in your favor. In most cases, you can see that little silver lining of, oh, well, this policy got changed this way and takes away something I was doing a long time ago. But this little fold that's in there allows me to still do this, or to do it a different way, to still help those that I'm working with, to still make sure I'm being responsible on my end and I'm doing everything that I possibly can. So those are another few other ways we can kind of get those balancing procedures and
absolutely
be on the same page. So.
Absolutely. I think it can be very tricky. And I think one more thing I would like to kind of cover with that too is, there's people who understand, and then there's people who still fight back and everything like that. And they do that in different ways. They can either not want to follow, which obviously then they have to go on our other policies or things like that. How do you maintain having them understand not only the new policy, but then holding themselves accountable? Like you were saying, like we hold ourselves accountable. If we don't know what's going on and this is happening, that's great. At what point do you have them hold themselves accountable? Because I understand at the very beginning, things are new. You're going to have oopsies. I kind of give that a little bit of a slide, just like, okay, let's make sure we don't do this. Okay, everything's there. At what point do you go, hey, you need to hold yourself accountable and follow these new procedures and policies?
the first thing that you have to do, especially in a new environment, is just setting expectations so that everybody's on the same page. I think where sometimes folks run into trouble is that they jump right into things. They don't set those expectations from the beginning. And then you run into those instances of accountability and of, well, you didn't tell me this, or I didn't know. And, it's hard to cover absolutely everything at one time. Totally get that. But being able, again, to take the 5-10 minutes, however long it may be, to say, hey, these are the expectations that we have, in this role on this team. And so you can go back to that and say, hey, we talked about this. And again, that goes back to communication as well. So that, again, kind of laying everything out there from the beginning. And then, if there's times where you need to reflect and go back to that and say, hey, we had this conversation, we talked about this on such and such date. But I think being really clear with your expectations from the get-go and having that experience when you do have that goes a long way. Because I think right at the fresh of leading a team or a program, it was really hard to kind of like, okay, what do I need to focus on so that others can focus on as well. But as time went on, it's like, okay, these are kind of the big keys, the big points that when somebody new comes into the fold, I got to make sure I hit on right away. So that they have that understanding of that expectation, so that moving forward, that accountability can be there. Because again, we're all here for the same reason. We want to do the best we can, but if we kind of need to reel back sometimes and say, okay, we're not meeting these goals, we're not meeting these expectations, then we can proceed with those other conversations and kind of meetings and go from there.
100%. So one thing that I wanted to go back to real quick that we talked about earlier, when you're having to take a step back because there's something that's changed that you're not maybe agreeing with and you don't feel is the right thing in the moment. What are some tips that you would give to someone who is trying to bring things up to be changed? Maybe a new thing happened and they want to go about a conversation in a professional, productive manner to say, hey, this is why I feel that way. These are the reasons I have that feeling. This is what I want to see from that. What tips would you give them so they can go along with that conversation productively, get what they need to out, and hopefully see some change?
Mm-hmm. I think the first thing is trying to remove that emotion right away. Again, if it's 5-10 minutes, go take a walk, I go pet my dog, I go hang out with him for a little bit to kind of regroup. And again, so you're not just so quick off the trigger when it comes to that emotion. And then making sure you're following the proper lines of communication, whether it be speaking to your manager, your senior manager, giving them an opportunity to review the situation. If you need to follow up, again, sending the proper emails and stuff like that. So again, I think if it's super quick off the cuff, it can get, again, you don't want to have that emotion in there. So I think taking that step back and then, hey, I want to see follow up on this, making sure you have the right lines of communication, making sure you're following through on those proper channels. And then giving those the opportunity to maybe investigate or look at a little further. I mean, I think if you're badgering somebody every 30 minutes for a policy change or something like that, I don't know how far you're going to get. But, if it's, hey, a couple of days have passed by, I need to send a circle back email or just remind, my manager or senior manager, like, hey, we talked about this. Do you hear anything more? Everybody's busy. We totally get that. But at the same time, keeping that professionalism in there is super, super important, because if you don't have that professionalism, that's not going to get you very far of kind of what you want to see change or maybe some different outcomes.
Yeah, hitting that brick wall like right away. And it's like, yep, that's no matter how good of an idea it is or how good of a change it is, if you don't meet that first threshold, it's a wash. It's down.
It's like that cartoon brick wall.
Yeah,
exactly.
Coyote and Roadrunner. It just pops up and done.
Yep, you're done. Exactly. And it hurts you in the future too, for sure. Thank you, Brian, for joining us on this episode. We appreciated talking to you about those procedures and finding that way to agree with it, how to communicate it to get kind of everyone on the same page, but also how do you go back? How do you say, maybe we should change this? How do you go about those conversations?
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for having me here today.
Eric, thank you so much for making me stay. This was really an eventful conversation, and I'm so glad we were able to have such a deep understanding of change and those challenges with Brian.
Yep. accepting it is the biggest one. And I'm finally glad you jumped over that hurdle.
Yeah, it was a tall one, but I got there.
Great.
Be sure to check out our show notes listed below and join us next time on the Principal Choice Podcast.
Find your purpose, find your people, find your place.